I'm going to start recording. So today's lesson is going to go pretty similarly to yesterday's. We're covering the topic volume of cylinders today. Instead of yesterday, we worked with rectangular prisms. So today is the second day of our volume lesson, and again, our focus is on cylinders. So let's review from yesterday what volume is. Volume is the number of cubic units that can fit inside of a three-dimensional shape. Yesterday we were working with rectangular prisms, which are also, remember, the same as like boxes. And today we're going to work with cylinders, which have that a can shape, basically. All of our answers today are still going to be labeled in cubic units, so remember that. And you don't have to write this definition down because hopefully you wrote it down yesterday. So the formula for cylinder, a little more complicated than formula for rectangular prism, but it's really the same concept. So we are just going to be multiplying, but here's what we're going to multiply. So the formula for volume of a cylinder is pi times the radius squared times the height. And I'll show you what that looks like here. We usually write it as pi r squared h. So I'd like you to write that down in your notebook. For a volume of a cylinder, the formula is pi r squared h. And for today, we will be using 3.14 for pi. So let's remember a few things. First of all, pi is 3.14. Next, the radius is the distance from the center of a circle to its outside edge. The radius is halfway across a circle, basically, or it's half of the diameter, if you remember that word. So we're starting in the center and we're drawing a line out to the edge of the circle. That's the radius. And then the height is represented by how tall the cylinder is. So think about height. Let's say a Pringles can is taller than a soup can, and a soup can is taller than, let's say, a tuna can. So looking at this example in the lower right-hand corner, let's go ahead and solve this one so you can see what it looks like. So these are just the numbers plugged in, first of all. So pi, again, is 3.14. R squared, so we look at the picture, we see the radius is from the center to the outside edge is 5 millimeters. So we're going to square the number 5, and then we're going to multiply it times the height, 6. In this next step, we've taken 5 and squared it. Okay, we're not squaring anything else, just the 5, just the radius. So 5 times 5 is 25. So now it's 3.14 times 25 times 6. And that answer is 471 centimeters cubed. So again, it's pi times the radius squared times the height. So now we're just going to go through the lesson and do some examples. You can draw some of these cylinders if you'd like to try. Typically when I draw a cylinder, I just draw two kind of flattened ovals, and then I just connect them on the side like that. So cylinders are pretty simple to draw, but if you want the cylinder drawn for your notes so that you can go back and refer to that, that's how you can do it. Also, a quick reminder about radius and diameter. So remember that the radius is halfway through the circle. It starts at the center and goes to the outside edge, whereas the diameter travels all the way through the circle. One diameter is equal to 2 radii, and that's plural. Radius is plural. We don't say radiuses, we say radii. Or remember also that diameter equals 2r. And then make sure that you're using the radius, because in some pictures you might be given the diameter of this cylinder, and then you have to remember to cut that in half before you start the problem. So Here we go. We're going to use 3.14 for pi, and we're going to round our answer to the nearest tenth. So find the volume of this cylinder. So using 3.14 for pi, volume equals 3.14 times r squared. The radius of this cylinder is 5, so 5 squared, again like the last example, times the height, which is 3. So in your calculators, I usually do this all in one step. I know that 5 squared means 5 times 5, so you're welcome to go ahead and square that number first if you want to, like this. Or in the calculator, I would have typed 3.14 times 5, there's both of the 5s, there's the 25, times 3. And the answer here is 235.5, and we need our units again. This example shows meters, so we say meters cubed. So that's the first example. If you have any questions, go ahead and unmute yourself and let me know. If not, I'm going to go on to the next example. Okay, moving on. Another cylinder, again, use 3.14 for pi, round our answer to the nearest tenth. We are finding the volume of this cylinder. So volume equals 3.14 times the radius, which I just wrote 8, but now looking back at the picture, that is actually the diameter. So we have to do 8 and divide it by 2 to get 4, right? This is diameter. I don't know why I wrote R. This is diameter. And so this is the radius. So 3.14 times 4 squared times the height, which is 6. So in my calculator, I'm going to punch in 3.14. I'll actually write here what I'm going to type in. Times 4 times 4 times 6. I know that 4 times 4 is 16. You're welcome to type it in like that if you want. But I'll just do 3.14 times 4 times 4 times 6. And that gives us 301.44, but it says to round to the nearest tenth. So 301.4. Remember, when you're rounding, you look at the number behind it. If it's 5 or larger, you round that digit up. Our units here are feet, so we say feet cubed. Example, another cylinder. It looks like we have a radius labeled here of 6 inches. We have a height of 11. So volume equals 3.14 times 6 squared times 11. And again, they're just crunching these numbers out in your calculator. 3.14 times 6 times 6 times 11. Notice the only thing we're squaring here is the 6. We're not squaring 3.14. We're not multiplying 3.14 times 6 first and then squaring it. We're just squaring the 6. So the answer here in my calculator says 1,243.44. So again, we're going to round that to 120 or 1,243.4. 1,243.4, and our units are inches cubed. I don't know if you remember from when we talked about circles earlier in the school year, but you've actually seen pi r squared before. Pi r squared is the formula for the area of a circle. And so to get from area to volume, you just multiply by a height. So it's very similar to that rectangular prism we did yesterday. Remember that area of a rectangle is length times width. And then yesterday we just multiply then by the height. So a cylinder is very similar. You find the area of that circle base first, and then you just multiply it by the height. Okay, moving on. A cylindrical fuel storage tank has a diameter of 19 feet. Determine the capacity of the tank if its height is 34 feet. And capacity, the vocabulary term capacity, it means basically what something can hold or what you can fill it, how much it can hold or be filled by. So capacity here is just another way of saying what's the volume. Notice there's no picture here, so now we have to go into the story problem and kind of decipher what is what. So it says the diameter is 19 feet. If the diameter is 19 feet, then the radius has to be 19 divided by 2. 19 divided by 2, which is 9.5 feet. And then we're told that the height is 34. So now we have radius and we have height, so we can calculate the volume. So volume equals 3.14 times the radius squared, 9.5 squared, times the height, 34. This is going to be a pretty large number. 3.14 times 9.5 times 9.5 times 34. And the answer in my calculator is 9,635. Then it says 0.09, but we're supposed to round to the nearest tenth. So that's this decimal place, and I look back there. So the final answer is 9,635. The 9 rounds the 0 up to a 1. And we're in feet, so feet cubed. 9,635.1 feet cubed. So a lot going on with that example. We had to cut the diameter in half, and also we didn't have the picture to kind of look or help, but we were still able to do it. Does somebody have a question? Hold on a second. I feel like I can hear somebody trying to talk, but nothing's really coming through. Let me see if something got typed over here. No. Okay. Oh, good morning, Ethan.
Hey.
Okay, let's keep going. I think there's 2 more examples. Okay, the next example is a little different. So it says a cylinder has a volume of 1,582.56 cubic units. The radius of the cylinder is 6 units. What is the height? So this is an example similar to ones we did yesterday, where now we're actually told what the volume is, but we're trying to figure out maybe the height in this case, or maybe the radius. So what we're going to do here is plug all these pieces in. Here's the volume. So I'm going to put that number over here, 1,582.56 equals pi 3.14 times the radius is 6, so 6 squared there, because the height is what we don't know. So remember yesterday when we had our equation where maybe we didn't know the height or the width of a rectangular prism, that's when we would multiply the numbers together on the right and then we would divide, and that's what we're going to do again today. So I'm going to keep this volume number over here, 1,582.56, and in my calculator I'm going to multiply 3.14 times 6 times 6 because I can clean that up. So that multiplied together is 113.04, and then I'm going to bring down the h. We're not going to round on these problems until the very end. So if you get decimals that have more than one decimal place, keep them and round at the very end. That's a much more exact answer. So now we're going to divide both sides by this decimal, 113.04. Remember, that's the opposite of multiplying. I'm trying to cancel that multiplication, so I do that through division. So now in my calculator, 1,582.56 divided by 113.04, and I get an answer of exactly 14. back to the problem, and we see that the units we were given were units, so we're just going to write 14 units.
It looks like it's English.
Okay, let's go on and do the last problem. Oh, there isn't a last problem. That's it. I guess I thought there were 6. Okay, cool. So we're done. Your homework today is a quizzes activity. Please, please, please make sure, because I'm using the same PowerPoint for both classes, that you're using this code right here. So write this down in your notebook. Whoops, write that down in your notebook. 158964. That is your code in yellow highlighted there. That's your code for the quizzes activity. 158964. I think there's 10 today. If I go back to Canvas, let me go to Canvas real quick.
What was the code again?
158964.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's the link for quizzes that says the code will be given during the lesson, so anybody who missed the lesson will have to log on here and watch the video in order to get the code. Remember, again, if there are any issues with email or Skype or anything like that, I do have the links up here to these Skype sessions, so you can always click on this link and then follow that through to take you to Skype. I would guess today probably attendance might be a little lower if students were only getting on through that email notification, and since they are saying that's not working right now, I don't know, did they send anything out to parents that said like email's not working? Do you know if any of your parents got it?